The year is 1861. The United States of America stands divided with two main participants about to face off in a devastating conflict. On one side is the Union, representing the northern states, determined to preserve the nation and end the expansion of slavery. Opposing them is the Confederacy, formed by the southern states, who sought to protect their way of life and maintain their right to own enslaved people. The northern states, with a growing abolitionist movement, condemned the institution of slavery as a moral abomination. This fundamental disagreement, simmering for decades, finally reached its boiling point. The nation was geographically and ideologically split. The North, with its bustling cities and burgeoning industries, stood in stark contrast to the South's agrarian society built on the backs of enslaved people. Each side viewed the other with suspicion and distrust, their differences seemingly irreconcilable. Political compromises, once successful in maintaining a fragile peace, proved utterly inadequate in the face of this growing chasm. The nation watched with bated breath as the fabric of unity unraveled thread by thread. Would compromise prevail, or would the nation splinter, its hard-won independence shattered by internal strife? The answer, as history would soon reveal, lay on a battlefield far from the halls of Congress. A storm was brewing, a storm that would engulf the nation in a maelstrom of unimaginable violence and forever alter the course of American history. Imagine a nation divided not just by geography, but by the very question of what freedom means. In this chapter, we step into the heart of a conflict where two powerful forces, slavery and the fight for states' rights, collided and shaped the destiny of the United States, especially in the decades leading up to the Civil War. For many years, southern states depended on the labor of enslaved Africans to tend their fields and support their way of life. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise attempted to balance the number of slave and free states, revealing just how deeply divided the nation already was. In the South, slavery became woven into daily routines and traditions, shaping communities and identities in quiet but profound ways. The Compromise of 1850, 30 years later, tried once again to settle disputes by admitting California as a free state and strengthening the Fugitive Slave Act. Many Southerners believed that each state should have the freedom to make its own choices, especially when it came to the question of slavery. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 further inflamed tensions by allowing new territories to decide the issue of slavery for themselves. Meanwhile, in the North, more and more people began to see slavery as something that needed to be questioned and addressed. The Dred Scott decision in 1857 declared that African Americans could not be citizens and that Congress had no power to ban slavery in the territories, deepening the divide. Abolitionists spoke out, encouraging others to reflect on the human cost of slavery and to imagine a different future. Their voices grew louder as the 1850s progressed, especially after the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Dred Scott decision, and they pointed to the words of the Declaration of Independence, gently reminding the nation of its promise that all men are created equal, a promise that seemed increasingly at odds with the reality of slavery. Conversations about slavery reached far beyond Congress, touching lives in every corner of the country, especially as landmark events unfolded throughout the 1800s. The topic found its way into sermons, newspapers, and even family discussions, quietly shaping opinions and relationships as the nation moved closer to crisis. Groups like the Underground Railroad formed, offering hope and assistance to those seeking freedom, and adding new layers to the national conversation, especially in the years leading up to 1860. For millions, the reality of slavery meant daily hardship and uncertainty, a truth that could not be ignored as the country debated its future. The pain of separation, the demands of forced labor, and the loss of basic rights became powerful reasons for change, fueling the growing movement against slavery. By 1860, with the election of Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the expansion of slavery, the nation found itself on the brink. The questions and conflicts of the previous decades had brought the United States to a moment of profound decision, setting the stage for the Civil War. I bet you didn't know that the first shots of the American Civil War were fired not in a grand battle, but at a lonely fort in Charleston Harbor. In Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, stood Fort Sumter, a lone outpost of Union control in a state that had seceded from the Union. The Confederacy, newly formed from the seceded Southern states, demanded the fort's surrender. President Abraham Lincoln, determined to preserve the Union, refused to yield, and so, on April 12, 1861, Confederate cannons roared to life, bombarding Fort Sumter in a fiery barrage that marked the commencement of the American Civil War. The attack on Fort Sumter ignited a firestorm of patriotic fervor across the nation. In the North, men rushed to enlist in the Union Army, eager to defend the flag and preserve the Union. In the South, young men answered the call to arms, determined to defend their homeland and their way of life. The first major battle of the war, the First Battle of Bull Run, took place on July 21, 1861, near Manassas, Virginia. Both sides, confident of a swift victory, soon learned the brutal realities of war. The battle ended in a Confederate victory, shattering the Union's hopes for a quick end to the conflict. The blood spilled at Bull Run served as a grim harbinger of the long and bloody conflict to come. The nation was now fully engulfed in a civil war, brother fighting brother, a war that would test the very limits of human endurance and redefine the meaning of freedom in America. The Civil War raged on, its insatiable appetite for blood and sacrifice growing with each passing year. Battlefields, once peaceful meadows and rolling hills, became landscapes of unimaginable carnage, forever stained with the blood of fallen soldiers. Among these battles, two stood out for their sheer scale and significance: Gettysburg and Vicksburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, remains the bloodiest battle ever fought on American soil. For 3 long days, Union and Confederate armies clashed in a maelstrom of musket fire, cannon blasts, and desperate hand-to-hand combat. The fate of the nation hung in the balance as tens of thousands of men fought and died amidst the fields and hills of rural Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, in the West, the Union Army achieved a crucial victory at the Siege of Vicksburg. This strategic city on the Mississippi River had been a thorn in the Union's side, controlling a vital waterway. After a prolonged siege, Confederate forces, weakened by hunger and disease, finally surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant on July 4, 1863. These twin victories, Gettysburg and Vicksburg, marked a turning point in the war. The Confederacy, once seemingly invincible, had suffered grievous losses. The Union's resolve, tested by years of bloodshed, remained unbroken. With the tide of war turning in the Union's favor, General Ulysses S. Grant, a determined and resourceful commander, took charge of Union forces. In the West, General William Tecumseh Sherman embarked on his infamous March to the Sea, a scorched earth campaign that cut a swathe of destruction through the heart of the Confederacy. Sherman's march, while militarily successful, remains a controversial chapter in the war's history. His troops, operating under a policy of total war, destroyed infrastructure, confiscated supplies, and instilled fear in the hearts of Southern civilians. Meanwhile, in the East, Grant relentlessly pursued General Robert E. Lee, the Confederacy's brilliant but increasingly desperate commander. The two armies clashed in a series of bloody battles, including the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, and Cold Harbor, resulting in staggering casualties on both sides. Despite the heavy losses, Grant's determination never wavered. He famously remarked, "I propose to fight it out on this line if it takes all summer." And fight he did, slowly grinding down Lee's army and tightening the noose around the Confederacy's capital, Richmond, Virginia. By the spring of 1865, the Confederacy was on its last legs. Lee's army, battered and exhausted, could no longer withstand the relentless pressure from Grant's forces. On April 9, 1865, at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, Lee surrendered to Grant, effectively ending the Civil War. The news of Lee's surrender sparked celebrations in the North, but the victory was bittersweet. The war had left an indelible scar on the nation's psyche. Over 620,000 soldiers had perished, and countless others bore the physical and emotional wounds of battle. The South lay in ruins, its economy shattered, its social order upended. The process of rebuilding the nation, both physically and emotionally, would be a long and arduous one. The abolition of slavery, enshrined in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, marked a profound social and political transformation. However, the legacy of slavery and the deep racial divisions it engendered would continue to haunt the nation for generations to come. The American Civil War, though a distant memory, continues to shape the nation's identity and spark debate and reflection. Its legacies are etched in the nation's laws, its social fabric, and its very soul. The war's central issue, slavery, remains a potent symbol of America's struggle to live up to its ideals of equality and justice for all. The war's battlefields, once scenes of unimaginable carnage, have been transformed into hallowed ground, preserved as national parks and memorials. They serve as poignant reminders of the sacrifices made by those who fought and died to preserve the Union and to end the scourge of slavery. The Civil War's impact on American society is immeasurable. It led to the abolition of slavery, the expansion of federal power, and the strengthening of national identity. However, it also left behind a legacy of racial division and inequality that continues to challenge the nation to this day. The American Civil War stands as a pivotal chapter in the nation's history, a time of immense sacrifice, profound change, and enduring legacy. It was a conflict born of deep-seated divisions over slavery, states' rights, and the meaning of freedom itself. From the first shots fired at Fort Sumter to the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, the war tested the nation's resolve, its resilience, and its very soul. The war's outcome preserved the Union, abolished slavery, and set the stage for America's emergence as a global power. The Civil War, though long over, continues to resonate in the nation's collective memory. Its battles, its heroes, its villains, and its enduring lessons continue to fascinate, inspire, and challenge Americans to this day. It stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy, the importance of national unity, and the enduring power of hope amidst the ashes of conflict.